bounce off our melanin so beautifully.
We're all good.
That part.
Okay, you ready? Okay. So, welcome to Ricky B Talking. This is the third episode. I know you guys have missed me. I've missed you guys too. Hope you guys had a happy New Year and a great Christmas. I am so overwhelmed at the support I have received for this podcast. If you've been following my page, you'll see that I've had so many views on YouTube. I had some haters too, and that's okay. I'm going to come for y'all, but I ain't going to do it right now. I'm going to wait till I get a little bit more notoriety, then I'm going to start coming for y'all. But anyway, so today is a very important conversation. It's going to be a two-part series about therapy in the Black community. So I have two guests with me, and I want to introduce them, or I actually want them to introduce themselves. So I will start with you first.
Hello, I'm Nikita Ledbetter. I am the owner of Mental Resilience Services located in North Dallas.
Okay, awesome. And do you have any social media?
Yes, you can follow the Mental Resilient page on Instagram. Also, you can follow me, the Resilient Therapist, on Instagram, and then Nikita Ledbetter on Facebook.
Awesome. And now my other co-host.
Hey, y'all. Hey, I am Shantae Jackson. I go by the Homegirl Therapist. I am the owner of Homegirl Therapy Services. It is a virtual private practice. I'm 100% online currently. And you can find me on all of the social medias at the Homegirl Therapist.
Okay, awesome. And so one of the biggest questions I want to know, just getting into your personal lives, digging into your business, is what made you choose the occupation of therapy?
Go on, Nikita.
Well, for me, curiosity, and I'm nosy. I'm very nosy. And I say that as in, like, I used to sit and watch people, and I used to wonder, like, why? Like, why would you do that? Even if it was things that didn't make sense to me that was stupid, for lack of a better term. I'd just be like, and I remember specifically I was in English class, Miss Moreland's class, and I was just looking out the window watching people do stuff, and I recall asking her, would you do, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but whatever this person was doing out the window, and she was like, why would you ask that? I was like, because logically that just doesn't make sense to me. Like, that was really dumb. And so she looked at me and she said, have you ever thought about being a counselor or therapy or anything psychology? And I was like, yes. And then so that following semester, I was enrolled in dual credit my junior year in high school doing it. And then on the personal side, I've shared this in, which it was new to me because I hadn't told anybody. I told a couple people since I was in a relationship with. But my background, I don't know what vlog is that Dallas does stories on people?
Voyage Dallas.
Okay.
I got you, girl.
She always got my back. Still mad at this.
I know.
Anyway, they did a story. So finally, and then a friend of mine that I went to college with wanted to do one as well. So I was like, let me just be transparent and open up. But both of my parents were in and out of prison. My mom been in prison since I was 10. So she did 22 years. She's been out, I think, 4 now.
Okay.
My dad was in and out of prison, off and on for he did like a 9-year stretch at one point. So raised with my grandparents, aunts, uncles, no solid stability growing up. And in the process of this instability that I had growing up, I was molested. So a lot of that was, I didn't want kids to feel how I felt. So that's my special, as I love my babies.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a great story though, because like it's great when you have a passion for what you do instead of just doing it just for the money. And it sounds like you really have a passion. You have a story behind why you do what you do.
Oh yeah, I don't work.
Which is why you're great.
I don't work.
And what about you, Miss Shantae?
So originally I went to college for criminal justice, but I only lasted a semester, child. Anyway, so
well, at least you did what you wanted to do, kinda.
Right. And so I ended up taking a psychology course as a elective, and it kind of just changed my world. But naturally, I've always felt like there are reasons behind behaviors. And I was always interested, especially in dealing with probationers or people who have been in the criminal system. It's like we criminalize them, but we don't ever ask the root and understand the why behind a lot of things. And so I've always been curious in that. And naturally, I want the underdog to win, but I always feel like people are misunderstood.
Right.
And so, like, I have this natural of, like, no, I get it. I see you. I hear you. And I always want people to feel seen and heard when they talk to me. And then just on a personal note, I didn't feel seen and heard. I didn't feel valued. I had my own issues of just not feeling confident, not feeling like I was enough, and willing to do anything for love. And so it's like,
yeah,
let's heal that, baby. And let me heal other people, because there are so many Black women. There are so many people in our culture who struggle with stuff like that and don't feel like they see people in our field who would just get them.
Right.
Like, I can read in between the lines. You ain't got to say much. You know what I'm saying? Because we have the same experience.
Right.
And so that's where my love for it comes. And just seeing somebody like, dang, she really get me. And so now the healing process can start. So
that's good, because, I'm glad you brought up this, because I looked up a stat earlier. And one thing that I saw was that from the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, said that more than 7 million Black and African American individuals in the U.S. are living with some sort of mental health condition. That's a lot, and so just the fact that it's that many of us that's dealing with things, and we don't really see a lot of representation in that field. So I'm happy that you guys have stories behind it, and I'm happy that you guys are killing it in what you do, because we need that. We need that in the community. Being in Dallas, what I've realized is, even in searching for a therapist myself, that there's not a lot of Black therapists. And so it's really, truly hard to find someone who you feels like gets you. Not that another race couldn't get me,
right?
But it's just easier when you have a similar background, to where you don't have to explain a lot of things. Like you said earlier, it's just like, I get it.
Yeah.
You don't have to say it. I get it. So I found it like really puzzling that, like, in Dallas, there's not a lot of Black therapists. So do you feel that that there is a lack of representation in the Black community in therapy occupation?
I think so. Now I feel like there's a lot more exposure for therapists of color, and I see a lot more of us out there than I did when I first started. I think the struggle is, it's not that we aren't there. A lot of times in our culture, when we go and we try to give therapy a try, if it don't work the first time, we're not going back, right? And it's like...
No, she's right. It's like, funny. But then I also tell people, I have to tell some of my clients, I'm not your priest.
Yes.
Right.
They be like, what? I'll be like, you only come when you got a problem to talk about it.
Right.
And then as soon as you process it out, and it's like, it feel good to talk about some things sometimes, right?
Yep.
Right.
So once you get that moment, and you're like, whoo, that felt good just to say,
And that's
without
it.
the judgment. And then it's like, oh, I feel good. And then you just go on. It's like, you haven't even scratched the surface.
It's a continued process, right? Not a
Absolutely.
one-time thing that you can do.
Absolutely.
So yeah, well, I hope that changes to where we do see more of us in that field, because, like I said, it has been a struggle for me personally. Same thing. It's not just this field, actually. It's a lot of the healthcare field.
Yeah.
It's been really hard for me to find a Black doctor.
Yeah.
For years when I was in Dallas, I didn't have a primary doctor because I was so stuck on, I want a Black doctor. I have a Black dentist. I want a Black doctor. And I was just like, and so I want that area of healthcare to have just as many of us as, all of the other areas that we see ourselves in.
And honestly, too, I think what I appreciate about social media and stuff like that is, as we have, like, I get a lot of people who are getting into our field and they have questions and all of that. But when I first got into this field, it wasn't a lot of us on social media like that. And we were taught that we had to be a certain way. And honestly, like, we had to be this robot. Like, we can't have any personality. We're supposed to be this blank slate. Our culture don't work like that.
Right.
We don't trust blank slates. Like, we don't trust somebody who just is showing no emotion.
Right.
And so because they see, like, oh, I can be a therapist and be dope as hell, or I can be a therapist and I can talk like this, then more people want to get into this field.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it's not on this. It's not in the queue to ask. But do you guys feel any pressure to be a certain way or to represent yourself a certain way because people consider therapists as they're perfect. I mean, like they're telling me what to do, like they're
Yeah.
perfect. So do you feel that pressure?
Not so much anymore, but I did well, okay. Shantae can back you up on this. Funny story on how I even got our names. We actually came up with our names together.
Okay.
We worked in a psych inpatient hospital together. That's how we originally
okay.
met.
So y'all
As
already knew each other.
interns.
Okay.
As interns. That's where my beef come in.
Oh, okay. So it's a backstory.
We had a whole business plan together.
Yes.
Oh,
We
okay.
did this together. I mean, we together, but we ain't together. So, to answer your question, I was the hard-headed one. She was the by the book, follow, and I was the one to be like, this shit don't make sense.
Right.
These people not finna listen to this. She dumb. She's a social worker. She ain't never did the clinical experience. And she's
Right.
looking like, so, but we just, no.
Yeah.
That was me. Like, I was very open and honest about across the board.
Right.
I didn't care who thought what of me. I actually got fired from that job.
Well,
to tell
we
you
being
the truth.
real right now, so if you got
Tell you the
fired,
truth.
just tell the truth.
But I actually got fired because they wanted me to do something to where they didn't think just because I looked and talked
Yeah.
like I was, they didn't know what I knew my shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
They wanted me to do something that I could have lost my license for, which means it only affects me. If I lose my
Right.
license, this hospital
It's gonna
continues
continue
on.
Right.
I can't work anymore.
Right.
And they wanted me to do something out, and I went to them with the code, baby. This right here says I'm not allowed to do that. So
Right.
you're being insubordinate, if that's what you want to call it. But according to the LPC board, I'm not allowed to do this because
Right.
I've never interacted with this patient.
Right.
So I can't step in and do this, what you're asking me to do. So that's why I got fired. So I yelled that to the rooftop because I got fired from doing something that my
Right.
license board said I'm not supposed to do. So ethically, I was right. I could live with that.
Right.
So I would say in that phase, I was kind of like, I didn't have a stigma or being ashamed of anything. But as I grew in the field, I learned to kind of scale it back a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and know kind of when to say what and how to say what. Because not only was it unprofessional at times, it was more so, it can come off bias of like
Okay.
I'm saying certain things or doing certain things to a certain, if I'm in this hospital with obviously a bunch of ethnicities, it is
Right.
like,
Right.
catching myself saying things like, that's white people shit. Or that's like,
Right,
why would you-
right.
You know, you can't
She
say,
said that.
but you can't say those things, right? So it's like I'm saying, like those are the things that I had to literally be like, what is wrong with you, Nikita?
Nikita.
You know?
Nikita.
Exactly. And so it's just kind of like those things of that. So
Right.
once I kind of realized and learned who I am, which is a process in
Yes.
therapy in itself,
Absolutely.
you have to learn who you are so you can be these
Mhm.
professionals to other people
Right,
to kind of
right.
know that, yes, when I say that I'm relatable, I don't say that I'm relatable because I'm black. I
Right.
say that I'm relatable because of life and experience.
Right.
And I've done stupid things because there are, unfortunately, other races who have their own stigmas that will come to me in therapy and be like, well, I feel like this way, I feel like that way. And I'll just be like, that's just a feeling or an emotion you have because of this situation,
Right.
or this core belief,
Right.
and these things that we break down.
Right.
So I did. And then once I left there, I went to a Christian counseling services, home and family services. I always shout them out. I was her first intern. Love them. I'm a board member with them. She is the old-fashioned therapist by the book, going to do the right thing.
Mhm.
Great lady, great organization. Loves helping people. Just great overall, you know. And then from there, the only reason why I'm actually not there in this moment because I feel like God had a plan for me.
Right.
And He knew I'm one of those loyal to a fault type people.
Right.
So I would have stayed.
Right.
So it was kind of a situation where I'm in private practice by accident. It wasn't on purpose, and we
Okay.
can get to that down the
Okay.
line
Yeah,
as
we
we
can
ask
definitely
questions.
talk about. Yeah.
But I went to LifeWorks, from her to LifeWorks, and to continue on with answering the question. And it was the Castle Hill people, kind of the money.
Okay.
And so I kind of got that, like, you know, and people are looking at me like, and so to give you also some background, when I was doing my internship, when I first got licensed, I worked in a maximum security prison. I'm from West Texas.
Okay.
So in Amarillo, Texas, people are either hanging, getting raped, fight. You know,
Wow.
I've had, I don't know if anybody have ever heard, I can forget his name, but they call him the eyeball killer. And I want to say he was from Dallas. He used to like kill prostitutes and like cut their eyeballs
Yes,
out.
girl, I saw a documentary.
Yeah,
on
I
him.
might need
He
to
was
see
on
that
my
on
caseload.
Dateline.
Yeah. There's a guy from so it was just kind of like these things to where it's like I was so used to trauma. And then when I went to Home and Family Services, we're dealing with adoption. And that was probably my best feeling was I got to be in a courtroom where a girl actually got adopted.
Right,
like from the whole process to the beginning. But that's hard mentally. Like, you know, watching kids be removed and having to do therapy and they just want their parents and all these things to go to sit across somebody who has a maid, who has a nanny, who doesn't work, who husband has all this money, but you have anxiety.
Right.
And I'm looking at you like,
girl, what's your problem?
And I didn't know how to deal with that.
Right.
That was kind of one of those things to where that's when I felt like I don't know my job. Because, yes, I helped all these people and kept people alive in prison and dealt with these babies who have all this trauma. I'm trauma certified. I have all this, you know.
You on your shit. You on your shit.
And then this lady looking at me like I got anxiety and I got to call time out and say, I don't know what to do with her. And they're looking at me like, what do you mean?
And that's what makes you great in your profession, when you can say, I don't have the answer. I need to figure this out. I don't know. Let me figure this out. I got this. I can figure it out. But it makes you more trustworthy. I trust someone who can just tell me, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to find out. That's really important. So I'm so happy to hear you say that, you know, because that's really big in that occupation as well, is I have to be able to trust you, you know?
Yes.
So, and what's your story? Do you ever feel like you needed to represent a certain look, a certain personality to be in your field?
Of course. I think for me, though, I was also I didn't know who I was. And so I was able to just mold myself into what I thought a therapist would look like.
Okay.
And I remember my first year doing therapy I had a supervisor, but as an intern, those first 2 years with my clients, like, I'm sorry, y'all. I be telling them, listen, come back now, I'm way better. Because y'all, let me talk to the camera. Y'all, I'm sorry. But there is growth and I'm better. But it was because I wasn't being myself. And so after I saw that I really wasn't having any success with the clients, I'm like, okay, what can I do? Because this isn't working for me. And then I just slowly started to introduce just my own personality and my own flow, and I started to see a change.
Okay.
But the more I got comfortable with myself, the more I was able to just be myself in sessions. And I feel like that is the thing that keep people coming back. But I did feel like I needed to talk a certain way. I needed to dress a certain way. I needed to sit a certain way. I needed to be a certain way, because that's how it was represented to us in grad school. And then most of our professors were white.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I got tattoos on my hands right now, bro. Like, I am completely 100% okay with being myself.
Right.
But I also know that I created this lane for me by going into private practice, by working for myself, that I could be myself 100%, like all the time. And if I'm not your cup of tea, what's great is you ain't got to see me.
Right.
And it's all love. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to send you I refer people I'm going to send you to my people who I know can help you. Right. And it's just, I just love it here.
That's great to hear you guys talk about that, because I think that's a big thing in every occupation. I'm even thinking about myself as you guys are talking, and I'm thinking like how I'm from the country, you know, Mississippi, Louisiana, like that's me all day. And so moving to Dallas 6 years ago, it's a very professional city. I pretty much have always worked virtually since I've been in Dallas, but there were times where I had to go in the office. So there was a period of my life where I was going into the office and I would have to interact with people. But the one thing that sets me apart on my job from most people is I don't put on. I literally talk like I'm talking to you guys right now.
Yeah.
That's how I talk at work.
Yeah.
I don't put on an imposter. I'm not an imposter at work, and then I feel like I have to code switch. I do have to tone it down, like you said, at times, because there are times where I'm like, what? Like, what the fuck you talking? Like, you know, like I really will say things like on the call, and I have to mute myself. I'm like, am I on mute? Because I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I do still have those moments. But I do pride myself on I'm able to truly be myself, and in any job that takes me is going to have to take all of me. Because one thing about it is I may talk the way I do, I may act the way I do, or, you know, whatever you think is like not professional.
Yeah.
But I'm the best motherfucker that at my job that you're gonna find, period. I know my shit. So you ain't gonna never be able to compete with me because I know myself. I'm smart.
Right.
So I think just in general, that's a really big lesson is be yourself at all times, even on the job, because it's more receptive to people. People trust you and people think you're genuine when you just come across as being your true self. So
because look at it. We don't like fake people.
Exactly.
Like you don't like fake people.
Exactly.
You don't like people who putting on. So stop putting on.
Exactly.
But then we even talk about the terms too of fake people. So my goal with all my clients, starting from my babies to even my 5-year-olds. Yes, you're going to develop and change at 5, obviously, but at 5, my goal for you when you walk out my office is some level of self-accusation because you have to know who you are.
Right.
So and that is part of the stigma in our community too, is we don't know who we are as Black people.
That's true.
Because of I mean, when you take it all the way back to slaves and the history in itself, and being told what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to do it. If you want to get this level, you got to do certain things. So you kind of lose sight of who you are, which aids to that anxiety and that depression.
Right. No, this is a great conversation. Speaking of stigma, I think that's going to be my first direction I would like to take the conversation in is, what are your thoughts on the idea that in the Black community, people think that you're crazy if you have to go and seek medical attention? Because I do think that stigma prevents us from going out and actually getting help a lot of times. So what are your thoughts around that?
It's really based on lack of education. That's really what it boils down to, simply because people come up with that term because of TV, because of other stigma that you've heard down the line, but there has been no research to say that. I mean, yes, don't get me wrong. There is a level of crazy therapy. We're not going to deny that.
Yeah.
Let me be very clear.
Very clear.
But it doesn't mean that just because you go to therapy, you are crazy. And that's the misconception that you get.
Right.
Also, it's attached to weakness.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's just kind of, one of those things to where they feel like that you are weak in a sense. And like I was saying earlier, I don't even think I finished the whole background of where my name come from was Shantae came in one day and she closed the door because we shared an office too, and she was like, "You hard-headed." She was like, "You a hard-headed therapist. You just do what you want to do." And I'm like, "No," because and a lot of things that I was doing and adjusting to, like I can give you a small story, and she probably remember it was an old and this is back to education, right?
Right.
It was an old white lady, and she had been experienced in this home health home where, bad experience with Black people.
Right.
Stealing money, taking laundry detergent.
Oh,
Lord. And, when you live in them homes and people take advantage.
Right.
You know how people can do.
Yeah.
So she had her own stigma about Black people.
Right.
Oh, man.
Understand? And she's already 80. So you was raised.
Oh, yeah. She was already halfway there.
You was racist anyway.
Right.
And it didn't help. So that's just what it was, right? So then I built this rapport with this lady to where she started to trust us. And then she started to trust Shantae. And then we had, how everybody have they little groups and cliques and work. So we had our favorite techs, our mental health techs, and we had our favorite nurses. And so as our little group gravitated to this lady, she just loved us. Lady didn't want to leave the hospital,
Didn't want to leave.
So then one day she says, well, those coloreds, and everybody got pissed and like irate. And I was so mad because I was like, y'all ignorant. And they were like, what you mean? I'm like, she said coloreds. That was a sign of respect in her time. To call you a colored.
Right.
So she could have called you.
Hard ER.
And all these things, right? and so that was my and you'll hear me say a million times, my clients hear me say this, perception is everything.
Yeah.
And it matters most.
It does.
Because how you're going to view the world is through your lenses. It matters. And so I was like, that's how I took it. Like, there was a sign of respect. Like, she's 80.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they were like so mad. Nobody wanted to, help her no more. And they didn't want to assist her. And I'm like, that's, But then when it hit, they was like, oh, yeah. Okay. So it's really just to me, it's a lack of education on knowing what therapy is and its purpose and what services that we provide.
Right.
Also, I like to add that they think that my job is to tell you what to do. I will hear that
I've
I'm
heard that
not
a
going
lot.
to nobody to pay them to tell me what to do. If somebody is telling you what to do, find you a new therapist because that's not my job. My job is to guide you, help you. I tell my clients, look at your life as a puzzle. We're going to take all these puzzle pieces out your head and we're going to throw them on the table. But we're going to put them together back in a healthy manner to see fit for your life and things you want for you in the future.
Right.
It's my job is not to tell you what to do. I'm going to let you fall and bump your head. Then I'm going to have that moment where I'm going to say, let me take my professional hat off. And I'm going to say, now look, motherfucker.
Yeah.
We've been going in circles.
Yes.
And this is my favorite line is, I like free money.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to keep coming in here and we keep talking about this same thing and you're not making
you ain't
real
doing
life
nothing.
changes, at this point, you giving me free money and I'm going to take it. But I'm going to let you know you giving me free money.
Right.
I'm not in here robbing you or stealing. You not making any changes.
Right.
So if you going to give it to me, baby, I'm finna kick my shoes off and take it. And the next time we have our sessions, I'm finna be eating because I don't know what to tell you at this point. And that's what you get with me.
You know, the crazy part is you said weakness. It's like we see it as a weakness. I think that's even bigger with men, black men.
Oh, of
Yes.
course.
Because I have heard so many black men say, I'm not going to go to therapy. That's for weak
Shout out
niggas.
to all my black men. I got a men's group, a black
Okay.
men's group.
She do.
I love them. Y'all my.
I love.
I don't know if I can say that on here.
No,
Y'all my niggas.
I just said it. You know, I said it already. So.
No, for real. I love doing therapy with black men. I love doing therapy with black men.
Well, because it's so rare that you find a lot of us who are comfortable enough sharing what we've been through, how we feel, and it is a sign of weakness in our community, and it's something that we do need to break because I don't understand why saying your feelings is weak.
I think that, like Nikita said, it comes from our parents and my parents' parents, my grandparents, and so forth. Because though they had to be strong because of what they were facing,
Right.
and that trauma is just passed down, and so now we have people who can't even recognize or acknowledge that there is an issue.
Right.
Because it's so normal, right? And so because I'm used to this is what my life has been day in, day out. You coming to me telling me that I'm depressed, you're fucking crazy.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
it's like, well, okay, let's talk about it, right? And so a lot of times the stigma is it just come, right? And give it a try. The other stigma that I think we have with black people is therapy and religion.
And you are going right into my next subject. So no, keep it going.
Yeah, so like
Keep it going.
therapy and religion, and I always tell people like you can go to church and you can have a therapist. I do feel like God created me and He uses me as a vessel to help guide you as you are trying to figure your life out. I'm not telling you to stop praying. Right. I'm not telling you to stop going to church and doing all the things, but clearly you need more. Right. Because you would not be in the place that you're in. Right. And I'm not saying that what God is doing is not, but I heard a saying somewhere. I don't know scripture, but faith without works is dead or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like you can have that faith, but like what the work is therapy.
Right.
That's the work. Right. Like that's what he's talking about.
Yes.
I'm giving you the tools and the resources. Use them.
Yes, that is
and
a
it goes
very good
back
point.
to education because there are Christian therapists. Home and Family Services, case in point. The only thing for me there was I felt like I don't want to be a preacher because she correlates everything like
to scripture.
But it's perfect for any and for the people.
There's a
if
genre
you need
for
a
that.
Christian
that's a
therapist,
group of people
Home
for
and
that.
Family Services is the place. In that place, like she has therapy correlated books. So like if you for depression, there's scriptures and things in the Bible that correlates to depression, to anxiety, to things that have to do whether it's your sexuality, whether it's the parental, the whole spare the child, spare the rod, those things, I don't know scriptures as well.
Everything is correlated to the Bible,
And so, but I had come to her one day like, I feel like I'm preaching and I feel like I may be doing the word wrong.
Exactly.
You gonna send me to hell. I'm here telling people lies.
Right.
So it's so funny because she always called me Jonah. She said, because God has snatched me like the whale and placed me because I'm always running and trying to do my own thing. So it's so
well, and that's
funny.
why you're in your own lane now. Yeah.
He snatched me because I didn't. I definitely didn't steer this way on purpose.
But I'm so happy that you said that because that was one of the big topics of the stigma is, it's actually it was a question in that one of the viewers asked.
Okay.
But I also there is another common saying out there that what goes on in his house stays in his house.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that is another reason why we as Black people don't like to go and talk to people about our
Absolutely.
issues because we don't want to we don't want to hang out our dirty laundry, you know? So what
But
what
the beautiful thing about
Go ahead and
therapy,
preach, girl.
the beautiful thing about therapy and dirty laundry is you're only giving it to me, and I, by law, cannot tell anyone else, right?
Mhm.
So that's just foundational, right? Confidentiality is you can come to me and tell me all your whatever. The only time I have to break that is if you tell me you want to harm yourself or you're trying to
Exactly.
harm somebody else.
Right.
But
Or someone's harming you.
or someone's
Right.
harming you. Yes. And
Or
so
adult too.
that is the only that's the most important thing. I think that if I'm gonna go deeper,
Go deeper.
I feel like when we have that saying, what goes in this house stays in this house, and those individuals attempt to come to therapy, there is this feeling of being disloyal or
Mhm.
betrayal
Mm-hmm.
for their family, or not wanting to feel like I don't want to blame my mom because I also love her.
Right.
Right. And so
It's a
here's the
respect
thing.
thing.
It is, but there you can have both.
Yeah.
You can feel both. Just because you love your mom and you know your mom loves you, there are still things that happen to you that has caused you some sort of trauma that is affecting the way that you are behaving in your current life.
Yeah.
I ain't telling you go and cuss out your mama.
Right. Don't do
Right.
that.
But you still gonna have to figure out what the issue is.
Well,
with that.
we're taught as kids that don't talk back.
Mhm.
What I say goes. As in the Black community, that's pretty much, I think we all was
Yeah.
raised pretty much the same.
Yeah.
No matter where you were born, all Black people was raised in the same household.
I know.
And you told, you know, I
Pretty
brought
much.
you in this world, I'll take you
Oh
out.
my God,
You know,
yeah.
don't talk back. I pay the bills. When you want to be grown,
And
you
I
get out
still
of
raise mine that way.
So no gentle parenting over there. It's still, you know.
We do a little mix,
Yeah, that's
but
the thing. You get a good little healthy dose.
we,
But
we
you
definitely
you
60,
need
40.
both. You need both. But we're taught that, and so that is a big part of it. Is don't tell our business. Like you
Yeah.
don't go out and tell people what we're going through because that's going to embarrass us. And I think that is what keeps so many people from actually going to therapy because they feel like you said, if I say what really happened,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to embarrass my mom.
Yeah.
It's going to embarrass my dad. People going
Mhm.
to think my mom is a horrible mom or my
Mhm.
dad's a horrible dad. And
Mm-hmm.
I love them. And if someone says something about them, it's up and stuck. So, you
Right.
know, it's like we got to break that
Mhm.
because you
Lack
have
of
to start being
education.
real
Mhm.
with yourself. In
Yep.
order to heal, you got to be real with
Yep.
yourself about
But
what
it goes back to,
happened.
like you said, lack of education again.
Yeah.
You know, I had a old supervisor tell me one time, I would never get a Black therapist because they tell your business.
What?
And so, right. But then like Shantae just said, you have that. And then just to throw out there, and I say this all the time, and I'm definitely not hating on any life coaches or relationship coaches, kudos, but I'm going to say this, take it how you want to. The beauty of having a LPC, a licensed professional counselor, is
Say it.
because of the malpractice insurance, the
Mhm.
liability that we have to hold, meaning as any of that get out in any shape, form, or fashion, I can be sued.
And
Which means
Mhm.
I could lose my license, which
Mhm.
means everything that I just worked hard for goes down the drain.
Done.
Right.
Ain't nobody worth that.
Right.
Period. You telling nobody's business is worth
Right.
it. And the reason why I say that is because there is no Texas regulation, test, examination, board, law to be a life coach.
Mm.
They're like life coaches,
Anybody.
spiritual coach, none of that. There's no, and I say that to get you to understand that that's the difference in having a therapist versus a life coach.
I didn't even know that. So
yeah.
That's what, and I
educational
say
to me.
it's a lot of things about
Yeah.
not knowing educational wise. I've had a person that had a life coach. So another thing with therapists, we can sign off as providers for like short-term disability,
Yep.
medical
Right.
stuff
Yep.
like that. But with people having that misconception, that was with a life coach. Lady had a baby, had other health problems, was seeing this person and lost her job because he couldn't provide that paperwork for her.
Mm.
Because not knowing that she was with a life coach and not an actual licensed professional through the state of Texas, because there is no, and anybody can Google it, research
Yeah.
it, there's nothing. So if I say, Ricky, I've been working with you for a year now, and I think you have enough sense on emotional regulations,
Mhm.
I'm finna go Google this certificate and I'm finna put Ricky as a life coach. You give me $500, baby. Here you go. You a life coach if you say that. If that's what you want to be.
It was, and it's not that you're downplaying the role of a life coach. You're just saying it's the logistics and the legal part of it. That confidentiality is not kept.
It's not there.
It doesn't have to be kept.
It doesn't have to be
does
there.
not. It does not.
But my thing is, you're not held accountable. That is the difference.
Right.
Like, you can make whatever mistakes as a life coach and these things without these regulations on your back. And I mean, my bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what it is, though.
There's no versus me in other LPCs and Shantae. Our license numbers is public.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you Google my name and my license is coming up. All this stuff is coming up. And as soon as you call the board with a complaint, they send out a suspension letter and say, "Pause, baby.
You can't
see nobody
until this is done."
Until this is done.
So yeah, I mean, I didn't even know that. So this is very educational, and I think that is a big difference between having a life coach and then having a therapist. So that's very educational to me in itself. And speaking on the same fashion, about the trusting of your therapist, there is a lot of mistrust in the Black community, just in general, in the healthcare field. No matter what area of healthcare it is, there is a lot of mistrust. You know, and there is cause for it because I did a lot of research in, you know, one of the things I kept seeing is, especially among Black women, usually when they go to healthcare professionals, their problems are usually minimized or ignored. And so there is a reason why there is this mistrust out there. But do you guys see that a lot, you know, just like in your profession too? I know it happens in, you know, like, you know, with your doctors and nurses, but does that happen in therapy?
To be honest, like, not even to be funny, what's the one thing that Black people love across the board that it'll make you go crazy?
What, chicken?
That's what I was
okay, maybe six.
Look, I was about to say chicken.
I was going to say that same shit. That's the first thing came to my head.
Because I love a good fried chicken. Okay, some money. What,
exactly.
What? Money.
That's why I lead, and in my first evaluations, I tell people, not only after everything I just said too, what I left out most importantly is you can sue me. If I break confidentiality and do these things, you can sue me. So that goes also into play of why it's so important that we make sure that we're staying on the guidelines and the things that we're supposed to stay on to make sure that people do feel comfortable. And because I know my people, I lead with that. Baby, you can sue me.
That solves everything. Like, oh, she's not going to sue her? So I'm waiting to hear something in the streets.
I'm front and center waiting for you to
I got my ear close to the streets. I can't wait to hear something. Yeah.
Right. So that's one of the things is the liability is really there to where we not only genuinely do what you love, there is definitely like there's a fear for us like to make sure that we on thin ice over here to do the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, so we want to make sure that across the board, no matter how small, even take it back to the Castle Hill time where I was talking about the lady with money and stuff. My face has said a lot to her, and she was like, "I'm sorry, people have bigger problems than me." And I was like, "Why would you say that?" She was like, "Your face." And I said, "I'm sorry, but let me be very clear. No matter what my face say, no matter how big or small your problem is to me, to you, your problem is always valid."
Yeah.
Right.
Always.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
You know, so that's one of the biggest things that I make sure my clients know. And that's where people confuse looking like us and being relatable too in therapy is that just because I look like you don't mean I'll be a good therapist.
Right.
You know, because I may not validate your feelings. I may think that, you know, girl, we both deal with this, whatever, you know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? In my head. But if I'm not maintaining that professionalism, it may come off as that way.
Right.
So it really is just about you finding the therapist for you. It's like dating. Therapy is like dating. You got to find your person.
Absolutely.
Well, I will say that because, you know, I'm in therapy and I've been to, I've tried out different therapists and I can't say that I've loved any of my therapists, but it's also because I just don't feel like they get me. You know, like you just don't get me. And so it's not that I don't trust them. It's just I don't feel like you really get where I'm coming from. Like you said earlier, they're probably looking at me like, what? Like that's not something like, okay, obviously they're not Black. So let's just put that out on the table. They're not Black. So like sometimes I'll say things that like only we deal with really.
Absolutely.
And they're looking at me like, okay, I don't see the
With
problem.
the
You know, like,
smile,
and I'm just like, no, that's the problem. And I don't
Yeah.
want to have to explain something to my therapist, you know, that I feel like is understood.
right.
So, although, like you said, you
Yeah.
may not, just because I look like you, I may not be a good therapist, I do think we trust each other
Way
more
more.
because we
Mhm.
feel like, now you gotta know what I mean though. Like whether you like, I know you got a friend, a homegirl, or somebody who's going through the same thing, you know.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I really do think that like you said, find the right therapist for you.
Yeah.
But I truly feel in my heart that every person that walks the face of the earth needs some form of therapy because we go through a lot.
A
What?
lot.
Yeah, like, okay, let me say something. Because, have you ever like been around somebody or thought like, who hurt you?
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
all the time because I see it every day. I see people who walk around with chip on their shoulders, and I'm like, why you wake up in a bad mood?
Who hurt you?
Right.
You need to try therapy. And I always tell people, one of my things is, especially for our culture, like we only see trauma. I call them big T trauma, little T traumas. We only see the big T traumas: physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, right? And so like if you feel like I didn't experience any of those, then I don't have any trauma and there's no need for that. And then I consider the little T traumas where you felt neglected or you felt like when I presented something to my mom, she didn't acknowledge me or she didn't validate me. And I carried that small moment, right? Like that small seed where my mom didn't acknowledge me or validate me at 8. Now I'm seeking it from other people as a grown-ass person.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
so, but we don't see that because it's like, well, I was never sexually abused. I was never physically abused. My life was pretty good. Like I had a normal life. And it's like, who are you comparing that to?
Right. What's the measurement? Like to who? You know, so I get that.
And why?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you even comparing to anything?
Right. I mean, to look at you even, and you're telling your story earlier, I wouldn't look at you and think that everything that you said that you have been through all of that, you know, because you don't seem like you're someone who, like, you just seem like you're full of life. You're very outspoken. I just wouldn't think that you have been through that, but you've done your healing work, and a lot of people have not done that because they walk around with chips on their shoulder, and you're like, like you said, like, who hurt you? Because
But I was that bad. I was a little bitch.
Oh my God, y'all. These stories.
Yeah.
And I'll be
I had
like,
that chip.
It was
you what? Tell me a
Even
story.
up into my adulthood to intern.
I want to hear a story.
No, I was like, Nucky.
Let her pick one. Clearly.
Look, I want to
she
hear a
got
story.
something over there that
I want to hear a story.
Friend, remember?
I want to hear
I
about it.
can't remember who the dude was, but like it was the car and like you.
Oh, you talking about relationship?
Mhm. That
Out of all the stories, that's the one you bring
But so
up.
here's the thing, because I have so many clients that I see who are struggling with dating in Dallas and relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the thing is, they be thinking that us as therapists, that we be knowing what we be doing in some of our relationships. And sometimes we don't. We still be out here being toxic AF. You know what I'm saying? But I just recall that one incident when we were
Well, let me tell you this story since you don't keep bringing it up.
I want to hear it
Okay,
now.
so my flaw is I'm verbally abusive in my relationships. I have a bad mouth.
Bad,
like
Ricky. Ricky, people.
had.
She doing. She's
I'm
better.
working. I'm a lot better.
We all have our flaws,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to relationships.
Yeah.
We all have something we can work on.
This years ago.
But so, and it's funny because this is my new thing this year that I need people to understand about me, and just I think people need to understand in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna face the people when I say this is
Face the people, friend.
I'm not necessarily a nice person. I'm a good person.
Right.
Okay.
That's a word.
And I say that because, like, I will give you any and everything.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
because of my childhood and the lack thereof, I love hard. I
Mhm.
appreciate my friendships. I'm possessive with my friendships. Like, I am.
Yeah.
I love my people.
Yes.
You know,
I'm
but
the same way.
once you get, because it takes you a while. I'm like the onion. It's gonna
Oh
take you
my
levels to get there.
God.
And like I was one of those people to where I didn't just meet you and be like, oh, we friends.
Right.
And I would be like I had to learn that there's gray in the middle, which is another stigma with the Black community. We Black or white. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But I was one of those. I was Black and white.
Right.
So like speaking to a coworker, I'm gonna speak to you for like I don't fuck with you. But I have to understand, but that's being cordial.
Right.
Act like you got some sense.
That's the gray area.
That's the gray area.
Yeah.
Act like you got some
damn sense.
Right, exactly. So with that being said, I was in this relationship on accident.
Okay.
Let's start there.
Don't act like y'all don't be knowing that y'all be falling into stuff on accident. You be like, you wake up and like, damn.
Then you know, you just entertain somebody, then y'all start talking more, then you start hanging out, then boom, you had sex. And then,
Okay, so it's
right.
okay,
That was an
accident.
accident.
Okay.
Yeah. So then my thing is, so let me make this very clear. I said, bruh, I'm starting to get in my feelings. I'm feeling you. We need to stop.
Right.
And I made it. I'm very transparent. I'm an open book. Like you won't ever have to question me.
Right.
You just have, if you struggling with yourself, if I'm lying about something, that's you.
That's on you.
But I'm very transparent.
Right.
Like flaws and all.
Right.
Like I'm like, baby, I'm walking caution sign. Take your risk if you want to. That's how I was. Like whatever. So needless to say, he wouldn't leave me alone, and we continue with this relationship.
Okay.
And so this person he lust. Walking lust.
Speak on it. Speak
Walking
on it.
lust.
Okay.
And so women flocks to him. So he just feel like he can do what he want to do when he want to do it. So I'm helping, from financially to kids to, trying to be
everything.
So I also believe that in order to be a wife, you still got to show them you have wife characteristics.
You have wife tendencies.
Right.
Because you can't just wake up and be
right.
married
I'm
and
not
then
one
all
of
of
those
a sudden
people
now
who
you're a
think
wife.
Well, I'm not finna be treating these men like a wife and I'm not a wife. Well,
How is he going to know that you can ever be a wife if you don't ever let
dummy?
him know? Right.
So that's my thought. But hey, the professional hat is off.
Yes.
I'm not in therapy right now, y'all. But anyway, so I felt like when my feelings get played with,
oh man,
all bets is off.
Oh,
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there because I want you guys to check out the next week's episode on part 2 of this, where we will continue this discussion because I don't want you to give out any more details because I want you to tune in.
Good.
Tune in.
So I'll see you next time.